What is up, guys? FrostyOsty0232 here today for another Frosty Features. Today we have one of our upcoming Bifrost characters, the one, the only, Beta Ray Bill. So if you don't know what a Frosty Features is, what this is a comic book background on the toons that you use in Marvel Strike Force, and I take you through some, not all, but the tip of the iceberg of the sweet, sweet stories that encapsulate our amazing characters in the game. And today, we are talking about Beta Ray Bill. So, let's get started. Beta Ray Bill, according to Scopely, Beta Ray Bill is a Corbinite whose life force was transformed into a cybernetic being resembling a fierce creature and tasked with being the guardian warrior for the race. During his travels, Beta Ray Bill encountered and defeated Thor, earning him the respect of Odin and a powerful weapon in Stormbreaker. Beta Ray Bill's cyborg body and the enchanted Stormbreaker endow him with powers comparable to Thor, incalculable strength, superhuman speed, and a healing factor. Okay, so this is what Scopely has to say about them. We're going to compare that to what I say later. Simple as that. Simple as can be. Yes, J-Co, they are comics and a few other things. Absolutely. Alright, Beta Ray Bill. Name. He legally changed it to Beta Ray Bill for real. Okay, so there's that. First appearances in Thor 337 in 1983 for a character that has been around for 40 years. He actually hasn't been, he's been in a lot, but due to scope and like how complex and cool the character can be or is, he really isn't in that much. Little fun fact there. You can read all of his stuff fairly quickly. Power/abilities. So he has superhuman abilities. Superhuman being past everyone else's, like a regular person, just super strong, super speed, super strength, all the goodies. And then also when he's wielding Stormbreaker, Mjolnir, or whatever, he also has powers kind of equal to that of Thor. He really is just like a second Thor, kind of, with aliases Simon F. Walters and Thor. So, he who wields the power of the hammer, he who wields the hammer gets the power of Thor, right? So they actually take on the moniker of Thor. That's why Jane Foster becomes Thor, Eric Masterson, they all become Thor, right? So Thor's name is, almost, it's the name of the hero. It's similar to something like a Batman. Anybody can be Batman. It works with Thor. And Thor's actual given name that he keeps is Odinson, and that's how you kind of distinguish him between the different Thors. Check out the Thor Infinity War feature for more on that. And we're going to talk about... So you're saying is he worthy? He is worthy? He is worthy. Yes. So, Simon F. Walters we'll get into a little bit, but essentially that is Beta Ray Bill's human... avatar? Human body? Affiliations, Omega Flight, straight out of Canada. The Annihilators, we've covered Annihilators a few times in Frosty Features, and of course, Guardians of the Galaxy. Fantastic Guardians of the Galaxy character. He is very straightforward, kind of stereotypical Thor type, very, this is how things need to be done, and this is how we're gonna do it. And so that, in comparison to the kind of the shenanigans of Guardians of the Galaxy, is actually hilarious. And any run he's in the Guardians of the Galaxy with is totally fun to read. So just so we're aware. Whoops. Who died? The Corbinites. So, with a villain that I always have trouble kind of pronouncing their name, Surtur, he destroys the burning galaxy, trying to create his Twilight Sword. Which in Marvel Strike Force, this is the sword that we see Val holding, actually. He destroys the burning galaxy, destroys Corbin. All the remaining Corbinites are like, hey, there's a lot of really big, cosmic threats out there. We need a superhero, right? So they decide to build one, and then that doesn't work out. They're like, yeah, scratch that. They made a robot. Scratch the robot. Bad idea. Let's take one of our people and experiment on them, and whoever lives can get all these cybernetic enhancements and become our superhero. So they grab a handful of Corbinites and they subject them to physical and psychological tests and stuff, and all of them die but one. As you know, as is comics, all of them die but one, and out stands who they then name Beta Ray Bill. Right? So, Beta Ray Bill becomes this Corbinite who gets cybernetic enhancements and such to make him significantly stronger, whatever. So, without the hammer, without the Asgardian flair, he is still essentially superhuman in every way. Also, these cybernetic enhancements are what give him that horse face. Fun fact, some people don't know, Corbinites don't look like that. Corbinites essentially look like orange people. Most of the time, they don't have noses, right? They don't have horse heads. That's just Beta Ray Bill. So that plays a huge part into Beta Ray Bill's character, is that horse face, because he's essentially this hero they made that all of them hate because they fear him because of how he looks. So he is essentially this outcast hero they created, right? Which, talk about layers for a character that really doesn't get the limelight ever. Right? So, background, the Corbinite champion. So they decided to make their own champion, that being Beta Ray Bill, and then he is native and born to Corbin. He was a regular Corbinite until the experiments in cybernetic enhancements. After that, his big task is finding new Corbin, creating new Corbin, and also he carries around very often the Mega Orb, which contains his entire race, while they're looking for a new place, all while they all hate him, which is super cool. Alpha Ray. So Beta Ray implies that there was one before, and I've referenced him a couple of times. So Beta Ray Bill being the successor to Alpha Ray. So Alpha Ray is the robot that the Corbinites make to act as their hero, and what they found is the AI or whatever that they have inside the robot is mentally unstable, and they couldn't trust him to protect them because he had no empathy. He was very destructive, and he helped them but essentially scared them, so they deactivated him for a long time. And then there's this as Beta Ray Bill goes through, he meets Thor, becomes very strong, and he's like kind of protecting them, whatever, and they all half of them start to worship Beta Ray Bill because of how strong he was and how much he was helping them, and the other half, these priests, were like, yeah, people should not be worshiping you, so what we're going to do is we're going to bring Alpha Ray back, we're going to reprogram him to kill you, and let's see how that goes. So there's a few runs with Alpha Ray, and most of the time he's going to kill Beta Ray Bill, and there's also a situation where Alpha Ray gets cosmically powered by Galactus. So definitely things to check out. So also, for our people that only know Marvel through the MCU, I think a really important thing to point out is Beta Ray Bill's weapon of choice. So, Beta Ray Bill, first, he is Beta Ray Bill. He actually beats Thor in a fight, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but he beats Thor in a fight, and he is able to pick up and wield Mjolnir. So, at this point in time, at the date of recording, a lot of people, pretty much everyone and their mother at one point or another, has been able to lift Mjolnir. I could do it myself. So it's not a very big deal. But back in 1983, when we are introduced to Beta Ray Bill is the first character outside of Odin and Thor to be worthy of holding Mjolnir. So this is very important to consider. He is sort of the OG, right? So after this, he ends up getting, Mjolnir being Thor's, right? So Stormbreaker, who in Infinity War, in Ragnarok, this is where we see, it's Infinity War. This is where we see in the MCU, Thor gets Stormbreaker forged, and that's the axe that he starts using, and then in the subsequent films, we see a bunch of antics of Stormbreaker. Stormbreaker is not actually Thor's. He has the power to wield it, but it is actually made in for Beta Ray Bill. But something more interesting, in the current canon in the comics, Stormbreaker has been destroyed, and Beta Ray Bill actually wields the Twilight Swords, which the Twilight Sword, as I said earlier, Surtur destroyed the Burning Galaxy in an effort to build the Twilight Sword. That's also what Vol is wielding in Marvel Strike Force, the Twilight Sword. So actually, now in canon, that is his weapon, and Stormbreaker is actually non-existent. So I wanted to point that out. I think it's just kind of a neat little thing. Relationships. So Beta Ray Bill doesn't have a lot of relationships due to the fact that I said before, a lot of people saw the horse face and they get freaked out and leave him alone. So Thor is his kind of rival slash partner. He very often are teamed up, but also typically because Thor goes through these fun break things. Check out Frosty Future's Thor Infinity War once again. He goes through these different breaks where he's not worthy or he's doubting himself. Borderline evil, but really just an upset dude. Beta Ray's usually the one that shows up and beats the crap out of him and is like, hey, you need to get your shit back together, right? Lady Sif. So Sif and Beta Ray Bill have a very complicated relationship, and it ends in a very gruesome and messed up way. But there is a stint in which Beta Ray Bill has a human form. Him and Sif kind of, have a thing, and then eventually he loses that human form. And there's literally a scene in a bedroom in the comic books where essentially they're about to get into it, and she's like, oh, change into your human form, and he's like, nah, I can't do that. And then she's like, well, we can't do this with the horse face, bye. So very, very poor on the love life scale. A lot of Beta Ray's backstory is him not being able to find a love. We're going to talk about that also in a bit. And then Alpha Ray is his predecessor. And that's it. He doesn't, once again, he kind of floats around. He's got a couple of friends, but outside of that, nothing that sticks. It's kind of a pretty sad tale, honestly. So, up next, notable events. Becoming Thor. The first time that we see Beta Ray Bill, he is on his ship that is called Scuttlebutt, right? So Scuttlebutt is a sentient ship. If you go back to Frosty Future Star-Lord Annihilation, all the plugs now, man. We've done enough now. Just watch some other ones. Star-Lord Annihilation, he's got a sentient ship. Scuttlebutt is, which is an amazing name, is Beta Ray Bill's sentient ship. So, with that, so they are going away from the Burning Galaxy. He's got his race in his Mega Orb, and he's flying through space, and they're just trying to find a new home. And in approaching our solar system, S.H.I.E.L.D. is like, no. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you think you're doing. But Thor, go check that out. So Thor is like, all right, dude, I'll go check that out. So Thor goes up to the ship, and he goes to check it out. And then, so this is back in the day. Once again, we covered this in Thor Infinity War, so I'm going to try to back off on it a little bit. But in short, Thor was punished at a point with becoming Donald Blake, a human version. This is similar to the Thor movie, where he has to prove himself worthy. So after he's proven himself worthy, which is where we're at with this, he is Donald Blake, and he has he has a cane, and when he smacks the cane against something, it becomes Mjolnir, and he can become Thor. That's how Thor used to work. The problem is because this was a curse that Odin put on Mjolnir. If Thor is separated from Mjolnir for 60 seconds, he reverts back to the Donald Blake form, and Mjolnir turns into the cane. So Thor and Beta Ray Bill get in this big fight, and Beta Ray Bill's proving quite the match for Thor, and Thor gets separated from his hammer. In this happening, Thor reverts to Donald Blake, and the main point of the fight really was Beta Ray Bill was like, oh, if I can get that powerful weapon, that awesome hammer, I can protect my people. So he grabs the cane and he picks it up, and Thor's like, oh, whoa, what the heck? And he picks it up and he's like, hey, where'd the hammer go? Why do I have this? And he smacks it against the wall, and it becomes Mjolnir, where he ends up donning the Thor clothes, which is how we typically see him now because of his big favor towards Asgard. But yeah, so that's when he first becomes the Thor Beta Ray Bill, and he's like, I have bested you, Thor, you're screwed, you're a human, whatever, we're gonna keep going. And as he proceeds to Earth, Odin sees this because he's Odin, and he's like, yeah, that's not gonna be a thing, yoink, and he teleports Beta Ray Bill and Thor to Asgard, and he's like, yo, this dude is, by all rights, should be able to wield Mjolnir, but also, Thor, you lost that fight because of this curse I put on you, which you really don't need anymore because you're worthy. So what do we want to do here? Let's see. Let's have a tournament. And by tournament, I mean a single fight. I'm going to put Mjolnir up for grabs right here. Boom. And y'all two are going to fight in this, conveniently placed lava world. By the way, Corbinites are from like a lava world. They do better in heat, right? You're going to fight on this lava world. Bare-fisted, Thor, Odin's son versus Beta Ray Bill, and see who wins. Well, Odin put them in the lava world, so Beta Ray would win. And Beta Ray kicks the crap out of Thor, and he's like, haha, I'm the winner. And Odin's like, joke. Mjolnir's still gonna go to Thor, but I'm gonna make you Stormbreaker. And you're gonna have the same curse. This is my favorite part of this, y'all. You're gonna have the same curse that Thor had on his Mjolnir, right? So Thor's curse, once again, was when he had to become Donald Blake, and then he'd have to change into Thor. He gave the same curse to Beta Ray Bill, so Beta Ray Bill would look like a Corbinite. So in his powered down state, he would look like a regular Corbinite, so he could work among his people. This ends up changing throughout the course, but originally that's how it worked, and I thought that was such a cool. I think that's such a cool thing that he's finally able, at his most powerful he's ever been. He's finally able to be amongst his people, etc. But due to comics, eventually, Stormbreaker gets broken, or he loses Stormbreaker, and he just becomes Horseface, and nobody loves him. That's a thing. So everybody in the chat saying Odin's a dick. Odin is, in fact, a dick, but also that was one of the nice things he tried to do for somebody, and it just didn't end up sticking for that long. But anyway, yes, that's how he gets Stormbreaker originally. With him kind of losing Stormbreaker, he now can do something similar with the Twilight Sword, except he changes into this. There's this whole situation where Beta Ray Bill dies, and he's reincarnated in a essentially a decrepit, disabled vet's body in an alley, and he wakes up and he fights crime with Spider-Man. That's Walter that is Walter Simon. And that's his body. If you look into it, there's some, due to Beta Ray's past and due to Walter Simon's situation, the whole thing comes off as really racist. But he ends up running this body for a long time. All this to say, once Stormbreaker breaks and he gets the Twilight Sword, he changes into that form, and he's kind of living amongst the humans, and he prefers Asgard, and the whole, due to the relationship with Asgard, that's why Alpha Ray gets sent after him. Those are all the ties I wanted to tie together of things I've already brought up. Moving on, hunting Galactus. So, after a while, we find that Beta Ray Bill finally finds a new planet, and he sets the Corbinites out, and he's like, this is amazing. Welcome to New Corbin. Everything's awesome here. And then Galactus is like, that looks pretty tasty. I'm gonna eat that. So Galactus destroys New Corbin. So there's years and years and years where we're looking to make a New Corbin. New Corbin is made, and pretty much immediately, Galactus shows up, and he's like, I'm destroying this planet. And then, Beta Ray Bill survives, because why wouldn't he? And Beta Ray Bill's like, I'm going to kill Galactus. And then everybody laughs at him, and then he finds the Herald of Galactus, and is like, hey, Galactus Herald, I'm going to kill him. And everybody's like, ha ha ha, ha ha, how are you gonna do that? And Beta's like, yeah, I know I can't fight Galactus, plebe. I'm going to go to every planet he's going to and destroy them first. Right? What a sane and we picked Beta Ray Bill for the sane one over Alpha Ray, and his response is to kill all the planets first. So he's going around, and he's trying to he's trying to starve Galactus to death. And there's a situation where he finds an entire race of beings attacking Galactus, and he's like looking at him, and he's like, he's a force of nature, he's not evil, whatever. I'm gonna save him. So he runs in, and he saves Galactus. He helps him, he saves him, whatever. Pretty much the job of his herald, but he doesn't do it. He's not the herald, he just does. He saves Galactus, and Galactus is like, thank you, you're awesome. Let me make one of your Corbinite women, and this will be your love interest now. And Beta's like, that's amazing. And then, so he brings back to life Tisha Asha Ra, who was a Corbinite woman, had knew who Beta Ray wasn't necessarily like in love with him, whatever, but ultimately was brought back to more or less be his mate, his lover, his whatever. And she's not super into the idea, because he brought her back to life just for that purpose. He didn't affect her mind one way or the other. So he brings her back and she's like, yeah, I mean, horse face guy, not really my thing, but he's really cool and he's the only reason why I'm alive, so I'm gonna stick with him for a little bit. So she travels around with him on Scuttlebutt for a while. But you know, nothing actually really happens between the two of them because she's not super into it, but she's trying to just sort of level with him. And there's a whole thing where, her and Sif becomes friends. So there's this weird ex-lover thing going on, ex-lover with the chick that's supposed to be his lover, but is not really into it. Super weird. And then I just think it's funny how it happens, but Beta Ray Bill ends up crashing Scuttlebutt into the Avengers deep space monitoring system and blows up Scuttlebutt and accidentally kills T. Asha Ra. So she's dead. Everybody's dead, and his fake lover's gone, and she ends up getting resurrected later. But it's really funny to me that she essentially reveals to him, she's like, hey, I'm not super into this, and he's like, oh no, I can't control the that's his horse's voice. Oh no, I can't control my ship, and then he blows it up and she dies. So read into that how you will. This is also the man that tried to starve Galactus to death. Oh well. Anyway, so those are some notable events for Beta Ray Bill. He's got some really cool ones. The reason why I picked those, I've actually covered almost all the stories with him in it. Ragnarok, Annihilation Scourge, etc. So definitely go check some of that stuff out. Hopefully, if anybody's read anything as a recommendation from Frosty Features, you've probably run into Beta Ray Bill once or twice from now. So those are two just kind of really cool bits about Beta Ray Bill. All right, so in Marvel Strike Force, they don't really care about the power level, but here on Frosty Features, we do. So the way that this works, if you are of a multiversal power level, that means that you have the power to end all of reality as it is known, not just by your universe, but all universes simultaneously. If you are a universal threat, you can end the reality, the universe that you are in, possibly hop over to another universe, and then end that one, etc., etc., being very threatening. Cosmic means you are a threat on a planetary scale. You can, on the low end, you can level entire planetary bodies up to solar systems or galaxies with enough energy, with enough fight, right? Nuclear means you have power equivalent to that of a nuclear bomb. You can level small towns up to a small planetary body with enough force. Super soldier means you are past the limits of humans altogether. You are able to level something like a brick wall up to a small city block with enough time and effort. City means you are more or less a human trained to peak in absolute ability. We have a lot of spies and secret agents here in the Marvel Universe. Greg is the undead Asgardian that hella spawns in Marvel Strike Force, and by all rights and manners, he is not that strong, but undead Asgardian physiology and things set aside, for the sake of argument, we are going to say Greg is equal to that power level of a regular human being. So, if I, armed with a grocery bag full of cans and a lot of vim and vigor, I could theoretically take out Greg, right? So, with all this in consideration, Beta Ray Bill, I feel like, is pretty obviously set in his ways at Cosmic. It makes sense even in the story I told where he's going around and he's destroying planets before Galactus can get there. He can't handle somebody on the high cosmic end or the low universal end like Galactus, but he can take out those planetary bodies. He fits very perfectly within that cosmic scale. He is physically strong, and before Odin Force Thor and things like that, he actually can go toe-to-toe with Thor and beat him in certain situations. So that's something really important to take into consideration on just keeping in mind that Beta Ray Bill is actually quite a strong character. So, according to Scopely, the only thing, this is on it, right? Like, usually, more often than not, I find that what Scopely says about a character isn't great. The only thing that I don't agree with all the way is when they say his life force was transformed. His life force was transformed into a cybernetic being. His physical being and life force was transformed into the cybernetic being. He was enhanced. He wasn't just like conscious transferred. His body was used to drive this machine. So that's the only thing that's wrong, but it's very small and even debatable depending on how in the weeds you want to get. So all that to say, they did it. Nice work. It's a really good description. I think it's totally justifiable to the character. So that is Frosty Features Beta Ray Bill. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything but a couple of clicks, and it really helps out the channel. As a reminder, I stream every Sunday at 8 a.m. at the Twitch link above, where we record Frosty Features live. I hope that you all have a fantastic week, and most importantly, y'all, stay cool.